I'm trying to remind myself how to go back to the breakout rooms. Is it this one? Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. So, yeah. Okay. But you're saying that people who are not in the room, they can't hear me right now. Juliet can't hear me. Okay. So that means I have to close the rooms. Okay. So, well, let's just close the rooms then. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there was an issue. Like also, I don't think they can see the video when this is up like this. So I have to close this so that they can see the class. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. I'm hoping that, you know, after April 1, when I go to this conference, I'm coming back on April 2nd, and we won't have to quarantine. I know I won't have to quarantine when I come back. So I'm wondering if the university is going to have some new policies starting next month that we're all going to be meeting in class again, hopefully. But we'll see. Okay, so let's hear who's going to speak first. And it's room 1, yes. So Juliet, which of these 10?
I don't have 10. I have 9. I choose only 9.
Okay, which ones did you not include? Which ones do you think are not that important?
The first one.
The people shall have the right to own weapons. Okay, and you all know that that's in the Second Amendment of the U.S. Bill of Rights. Right?
Yeah, but in my opinion, it shouldn't be.
What else did you not select?
The second one, I didn't choose either.
Everyone must be friends with everyone. Okay. What else did you not select?
I didn't choose the 6.
The people should have the right to clean streets and parks.
I mean, they can, but it doesn't sound the most important.
Yeah, but not put it in the pamphlet of protections.
Yeah.
I mean, you could view this as you know, a pandemic global health, public health requirement.
Yeah, totally.
And you know, that again, I mean, these exercises were created years ago, which is interesting because of the conflict that Americans have to, again, the central government playing a leading role in requiring you to get a vaccine, or else you'll not be able to enter into a restaurant or go to get work at a job site, or having to wear a mask. How dare the central government or any government force me to wear a mask if I don't want to? I mean, that's the kind of rhetoric you hear today in America. What's your third one that you don't like?
The 12th.
The people shall be free to drive as soon as they can operate a car.
I mean, I don't think.
And you know, it sounds kind of funny, but like, I don't know. Do you all have driver's license? Julia, do you have a driver's license?
I don't have it yet.
Yeah, I mean, do you all have driver's license? Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a rite of passage in the U.S. When you're 16, you get a driver's license. You have to, because it seems to be so much more difficult to do anything in America if you can't drive a car. Certainly, it's almost, unless you live in a big city, you have to drive a car to go to work, and you're expected to start working when you're young. I mean, I started getting an official paycheck when I was 16, as soon as I could drive. And I had
in France it's
different. Shop. Yeah.
In France, you don't need to have a car if you live in Paris or in another big city. So
it's not a right of protection, but the right to transportation, you know, is critically important for a modern economy. And what's your fourth and fifth one?
I didn't put the 13th either.
No person shall be required to fight in a war. Ooh.
Because Well, if nobody is required to fight in a war, who will involve by themselves if there is a war?
Yeah. I mean, we've always had the right to conscientious objector status, but you have to prove, if you're not going to fight in a war, that you really are a religious conscientious objector. And you have to demonstrate through your personal experience throughout your life that this is not something you just decide at the last moment to avoid having to serve in the Army or Navy or Air Force.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's go to room 2. And okay. Go to room 2. And Anais, which 5 did you not select? Yeah? What's your last one? What is your difference? 13, no person shall be required to fight in a war. And any others did not choose? Okay. And huh? Okay. And then room 3. And so room 3 is Kim Pyong-ku. Kim Pyong-ku. Which 5 did not include?
Number 2.
Okay. Number 2 is everyone must be friends with everyone else. Wait, what else?
And number 12.
The people shall be free to drive. Okay. And third one?
14.
No person will be put on trial twice for the same crime. I think that is in the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Bill of Rights. It's called double jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're found innocent once, you can't be put on trial again if the trial is fair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a difference. And your 5th one?
6.
The people shall have the right to clean streets and parks. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this obviously this public health issue, I mean, it's just really important. I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic is just the most recent pandemic. We've had HIV/AIDS and Zika and Ebola and West Nile, and it's going to happen again. It's going to keep happening, and this COVID-19 pandemic is not finished, and this virus is continuing to mutate. So you could make a strong argument that if you're going to make a new state today, let's say, for example, after all of this horrible suffering, and God help us if the Ukraine war does eventually end, that they're going to have to write a constitution for this new state in Western Ukraine if Russia invades and conquers and annexes Eastern Ukraine. Let's get away from that case, but just in general, more states have become independent, obviously long after the United States wrote its constitution, and they do try to learn from each other. So if you study the constitutions of, for example, the post-communist states that emerged after the breakup of the Soviet Union, their constitutions are going to make reference, for example, not to clean parks and streets, but they will make explicit reference to these United Nations treaties and these statements by the United Nations about human rights. And the United Nations human rights system has developed greatly since the Second World War, including a number of different treaties against racism, treaty against torture, treaty for of the rights of women and children, treaty of human economic and social rights, human civil and political rights. These are all treaties that have developed since 1945, and a lot of new states with new constitutions do make varying degrees of reference to these various UN treaty documents. And keep in mind that the UN, because it was a project that was really promoted by the United States under the President of the United States during World War II, Franklin Roosevelt, and then he died. And the first director or chairperson of the United Nations Human Rights Body was his widow, Eleanor Roosevelt. And under Eleanor Roosevelt in 1948, the United Nations issued its Universal Declaration on Human Rights. And ever since then, it's the declaration, it's not a treaty, but ever since then, the United Nations has attempted to encode those statements of ideals in the Universal Declaration from 1948 into various treaties. So, you know, it makes a difference, experience and historical developments that have happened since the end of the 18th century. And then let's go to the next exercise. And so here, so what are we supposed to do here? So here are these are the amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and the first 10, of course, are in the Bill of Rights. And then you also see 13 abolishing slavery, 14 guaranteeing due process, again 14. Amendment 19, this was adopted, I think, in 1920, that gave women the right to vote. Only 100 years ago, 102 years ago, did women get the right to vote. I think in Switzerland it wasn't until the 1970s. Canton, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and then Amendment 26, the right of citizens of the United States who were 18 years of age or older during the Vietnam War, this was adopted because the claim was, well, how can you make, this time it was pretty much just men, be drafted to fight and die and kill in war, went from the time of 18, but they can't vote until they're 21. And of course, the hope was also to you know, co-opt and pacify the protesters against the American government at the time during the New Left movements of the 1950s and 60s. But still, of course, in many places in the United States, to this day, these 18-year-olds, even though they can be drafted and can vote, they can't buy beer. No mech Jew, you know, because you have to wait till you're 21 in many places. Okay, so could you please, let me send you this, this document, and please, from those 15 protections that you chose 10 from, write down the number from that 15 list next to these amendments, actual amendments in the U.S. Constitution. Amendment, all right, so let's see. Go back to file, go back to here, open. So I have to remember, we have to stop recording this class at 11:30. So the Zoom session will end in 18 minutes. So, and please, let's go back and look at that file. So please, using both of those files, write down the protection number from that first file next to each of these amendment lists here, okay? And again, why don't you work in the groups that you were originally put in? I'm not going to open up the groups again because, you know, Cyril just pointed out that when we do that, the communications collapse. So, yeah, that's great. Yeah, use your smartphones. Call them up on the phone if you can't contact them, you know, let's really get into this technology, because technology is good. What's the term? I'm a technophile, a techno-utopian. Technology will create Star Trek type future for us all. We'll have adventures, meet new alien species. And so the second person in each group will speak. Let's make the second person in each group listed will speak now, rather than reopen the groups. Okay, so which group is going to speak first? Heads, it's group 1. Heads, tails. Heads, it's group 2. And it's tails. So group 3, the second person in group 3 will speak now. And we go here and go to, no, that's not it. Yes, that is Ju-Eugene. Ju-Eugene? Ju-Eugene? Ju-Eugene. I'm sorry, Joe-Eugene. Joe-Eugene. Joe-Eugene.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
Professor.
Joe-Eugene. So let's go back to the 2 files that we were playing with here. And let me open up the other one as well because we'll need that. I shouldn't have closed it. So let me go back to share screen. And we go back to, so Joe Eugene, Amendment 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof of a religion or abridging the freedom of speech or abridging the freedom of the press or the right of the people to assemble, in other words, to come together and debate and organize to form political parties or interest groups, civil society, right? That's, I mean, the people that wrote these amendments are trying to use as few words as possible with as broad a range of interpretation as possible. So that refers to the right to form interest groups and political parties, people to peaceably assemble and organize and discuss and decide what to do, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. This might be, well, certainly one of the most important amendments in the US Constitution. This is the Democracy Amendment. And I want to highlight this notion of petitioning the government for redress of grievances. So I get to act like I'm a European peasant or a Korean peasant. And, you know, or in Saudi Arabia today, right? The king of Saudi Arabia holds court once a week. And the mighty king of Saudi Arabia sits in his tent on his throne and he takes petitions from Saudi subjects, not citizens, subjects to the Saudi king. And the petition has a request written on it to the Saudi king about somebody doing something, maybe could be a petition claiming that somebody did something wrong, and the petitioner is requesting redress of grievances, that there's a problem, and I want you as the government official to, I expect you to hear me, listen to me, and respond to me, rather than just say, don't talk to me, it's none of my business, I don't care, get away from me. No, you have to listen to me, consider what I want, and do something. You can tell me to go jump in a lake, but still you have to agree to listen to my petition for a problem, a redress of a grievance. And then, of course, we also have elections, so I might vote against you if you don't do what I want. So this is, you know, if you're a peasant, you can come up to the French king or the monarch or the Yamaha and get down on the knee and present your petition to the petition, right? And this is the legal justification for lobbying. And lobbying means that you have the right to ask the government officials to do something for you. And the reason I emphasize this is because I think many Americans, and maybe Europeans too, I think you do, because you're concerned about powerful, rich companies in particular pressuring European officials or French officials or Swiss officials or German officials to do something for them, because these companies have lots of money, and these German or European Union officials, they want to keep their jobs, like Joe Manchin, they want to get reelected, and so they want to keep people happy that will help them maintain their position, help them get reelected. And rich people and rich companies that have lots of money can provide lots of money for political campaigns to pay for television advertisements and social media advertisements and election workers and campaign workers. And this term lobbying refers to this appeal by you, me, rich companies, organizations for the environment, for human rights, to request that the government official do something that we want done. And lobbying, of course, refers to the fact that back in the 19th century, the Congress or the official in a state government would have a chamber where they would begin to meet and discuss and debate and vote. But at the entrance of that building where these legislatures would meet, there was a place, an entry room, a lobby, like a lobby in a hotel. And they would be in the lobby, these representatives of these different groups, and they would approach the government officials and ask them in the lobby before they go into the debate chamber to do something. So that's where we got this term, to lobby, to lobby. And another slang term is to buttonhole somebody. So say you come into you're an elected official, you come into the lobby, and I approach you and I grab your coat, the buttonhole, and I ask you please to do something. And the reason I mention this is because Americans often will think that this is corrupt, this is corruption. These special interest groups approaching elected officials and asking them to do things like the fossil fuel companies, the coal and gas and oil companies, lobbying and pressuring Joe Manchin to do what they want. But it's in the gosh darn Constitution. This is a fundamental human right that you have the right to ask a government official to do something for you. And the government official at least has to hear you. They might not respond, but you can't say, no, I don't want to. This is what democracy is all about. And of course, it comes out of medieval practice, like when you present a petition to the king or the duke or the baron or the count. Okay, so I forgot now which group we're. See, we go here and go down here, go here. Okay, Eugene, what numbers did you put in this chart?
I think the number 3.
Number 3 goes here, and what is number 3? So number 3 is people are free to express their opinions on any subject. All right, okay. And let's see, we only have several minutes left. So I think I want to point out that this exercise is to highlight how, even though the language is kind of stilted and unusual, because the language is 250 years old, these amendments refer to real substantive rights, including the fundamental principles of democratic governance. Some of these, of course, are less important than others. Like, for example, reflecting the experience of the American colonists during the war against the British, one of the main sources of anger or irritation was that the British government, to cover the costs of keeping the British Army in North America to guard against the French and the Indians, was that American colonists, the American colonies, had to provide shelter and food to soldiers who were based or stationed in their town or countryside. So you had to feed these soldiers and provide them with a place to sleep. And so you can see that that's in the 10 amendments, the Third Amendment. But how would this be interpreted today? I don't think this amendment really has any relevance to anything going on since then. I could be wrong. I just can't recall in my reading that the Supreme Court of the United States has ever referenced the Third Amendment recently in any substantive way in any issue. But double jeopardy is in Amendment 5. Because of course that was the claim, that the king and the king's representatives would keep putting somebody on trial until they found them guilty. find some reason to put this person in prison. That there should be a speedy, impartial jury trial in Amendment 6. Amendment 4, that the police cannot just break into your house and look for certain evidence, that they have to have a court approval to do that. There cannot be unreasonable search and seizure. Some of these are all really important keep in mind, this is the first modern democratic revolution in world history. At the end of the 18th century, just a few years before the French Revolution, right? But this, of course, is an example of sharing best practice. The French were well aware of what the Americans did when they had their revolution. And this would have a big impact on the whole world, okay? Yeah. Now, of course, the Americans had some, I'm not saying Americans are somehow superior human beings. The late 18th century was very different from, say, the situation we see in much of the rest of the world breaking away from empires in the 20th century. And that's another topic. But this would be a big impact on the rest of the world by example, and then partly by the power of the United States, particularly immediately after the World War II. Yeah, Amendment 7. I don't think I see this very often. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined by any court in the United States than according to the rules of common law. So there's actually a reference to $20 in that might be relevant, but I'm not a legal expert. I just know from reading closely the press reports. But excessive bail should not be fined. Again, this is supposed to be the bar on torture. No cruel and unusual punishments, whatever that means, because that would change over time, right? What's considered cruel and unusual today is very different from what's considered cruel and unusual 200 years ago. And then aside from those amendments, probably the 14th Amendment has been used to expand protections to other groups, including ending Jim Crow, marginalization, making black students go to a separate school. Why are you going to target a particular group of people? You have to have a really, really good justification for why you're targeting a group of people for exceptional legal treatment. Like I said, when women got the right to vote, there were already a number of states that made it legal. A number of states had already made women's voting in elections legal. The 19th Amendment simply made it national law. Okay, so we don't really, I guess the point to highlight is that these sound mundane and simple, but this is the mundane and simple statement of rights that are considered to be foundational, at least to the founding of the United States notion of what we call today human rights. Except for the ones that are not included, like the right to own and drive a car. Yeah, but well, anyway. But I guess that highlights how some of these social and economic issues. Like everybody should have the right to transportation, because if you can't get transported, let's say you get drunk and you get arrested for being drunk and you lose your driver's license, you can't drive. But if you can't get transportation, you can't go to work, right? So there has been the effort to make accommodations for the need of people to have transportation, even if they don't have a car. They can't drive because they're sick, whatever. There has to be access to transportation. It's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not been adopted as maybe as a national right, but there is a global awareness in America that you have to have a way for people to go different places if they don't have access to a car. And it's controversial because you have to pay for it. You have to create bus services. I mean, there's a bus service in my home in Stark County. So many people hate it. The Stark County Regional Transit Authority, SARTA, because they look at the bus and there's nobody on it. There's one or two people. But there are probably people that are sick, there are people that can't drive for whatever reason. But if they can't drive, they can't go to a doctor. They can't go to their probation officer to stay out of jail. They can't go to work if they have to work. So you have to provide a bus service for them. And then, let me see if I make this here. And so we're sort of running out of time here. I'm going to have to shut down the Zoom here pretty soon because, like I said, I have to download the recording so that I can upload it to the course site. And so these are just more exercises. A person accused of a crime has a right to a speedy and what would be the other one here? Public trial. No secret private trials, secret trials like we're having in certain places of the world where terrible human rights violations are happening, where people are put on trial in secret courts, right? They should be it should be a speedy and public trial. So there's always a broadcast. Of course, it's always now on the web if somebody's being put on trial for a crime, and so on. Okay, well, I'm going to have to stop the recording, the Zoom recording. And so the rest of you who are not here, I have to stop the Zoom recording because I have to download this. So, okay, I guess I'm trying to figure out how, you know, what I could do is start this and then restart it without recording so that, let's do that. I'll stop this recording and then I'll restart the class so we can stay on Zoom, but not recording.